Hello there, my name is Emma Valent, and today I'm attending to a request which is showing how I make 3D asteroids and moon models. Okay, so first of all, I'm using new text Lightwave 3D. Okay, it's a 3D software like others. Although I feel like Lightwave isn't as much heard of nowadays because there are other programs which are apparently easier to learn, such as Blender, Maya, and maybe 3ds Max. I have a little bit of experience with those others, but the first software I was introduced to was Lightwave, so I have more experience with Lightwave anyways. So don't worry if some of the commands appear to be too specific. You might find something similar, or maybe you can improvise using your native software for building 3D models. Let's go into it. First of all, I will be working with an asteroid because not only moons they go through a similar process for texturing and geometry building, but also because moons they have a lot of more space for canyons, mountains, craters, and other geological features. That goes a lot of work into building a moon, a detailed moon model. You also would need a texture and a spherical texture, which is something I'm not showing yet how to make. I'm aware that some of you guys don't know how to do this, and it was quite of a miracle when I learned how to. Okay, but let's focus on asteroids. Asteroids are small. They have large craters. They have appreciable craters because they are small objects. Everything is much more pronounced around asteroids. So let's start with an irregular shape because asteroids have irregular shapes. Okay, the larger the asteroid, the more gravity forces it to into a spherical shape. So the smaller the asteroid, the more liberty you have with the specific shape. I like to start with a cuboid shape because then if I'm working with actual numbers, I have a notion of height, depth, and width of the asteroid if I'm working with a very specific dimensions. Okay, so starting with a cuboid shape here, uh, we cannot work with these squarish shapes. We cannot work with the polygons as they are, because once we start distorting it, you notice the element starts to break. Okay, because it's not a plane anymore. It's polygon, of course. It's not in the same plane. Not all the points are not in the same plane. So we need to reduce the chance of our geometry breaking in the process. That's why we work with triangles now. So break your geometry into triangles. Have the specific proportion you want to work with. Okay. So now here comes the easy part of the process. Light wave. It has a property here in the multiply area, multiply tab here in subdivide booleans. Here's the main tool I use to work down asteroids and whenever need a more natural shape. Okay, this is a smoothing tool. Okay, I can define the smoothing angle. I can add fractal noise. There are other types of smoothing here as well, or subdivision method. Okay, if I only use this smoothing with zero fractal noise, it would just smooth out as a rock shape. Okay, if I just use this. However, if I shift okay, if I add some noise, you see that's not perfectly round anymore. If I add 75% noise, you see now it's a more irregular shape. Okay, so usually what I do is start with the rough cuboid with the dimensions I want to work with, and then I start subdividing, okay, adding more noise. Sometimes there's no problem overshooting the noise a little bit as long as it isn't too rough for the scale you're working with. Okay, let me go back to 75%. Okay, and maybe a little bit more subdivision. Okay, I think this is good enough to start working with. Okay. So here is the raw shape of our asteroid. Okay, the lump, a big lump of rock and loose material. Uh, we could go with this already, but we want craters. We want something more solid. We want to work with something more solid. We want craters. We want to see interesting things in this rock. Okay, so if you see here, we are looking at the texture. Okay, texture shade. If we can activate texture Y, we can see the wireframe of the object. The shade I'm looking for is weight. Okay, so light wave. Weight, it's how influent something else is to a certain object. Okay? So if I want to model a character and I want to designate a certain bone of the character to move a certain part of the model, I link the bone to a certain weight shade of the model. So I can link a bone arm to the arm itself of the model by designating the arm region with a shade that corresponds to the specific influence of the bone. That's what we will do here. Create a new shade, a new weight shade, as you can see here. Determine its initial value is 0 because there's no influence yet. Okay? And it stays that shade of green. Once we start to add influence, we'll see uh, that the asteroid itself starts to be colored in orange to indicate the influence. Next, we already established a weight. Next, we are going to go to map and go to color, texture point, texture point, and we can give it a name or we can select a weight map. So our weight map, it's called weight. For some, I didn't give it a name, so it's just called weight. It's the only option we have here. So just oriented this right and scale 1 meter. That's right. And go to texture. Now we can close this tab and open this new one. Okay, so here's our model. Here's a rock, and we can start to add some noise. We can change the texture to procedural texture. As you can see, it starts to get some orange in some parts because the orange parts are the one influenced by this texture. Okay, so we can control the contrast too. See? Okay, so we will try to create some noise, give it some roughness when we start working with next steps. 50%. I think that's good for now. I didn't give it the object an actual scale of hundreds of meters of quantity, so I'll have to scale down some bits. I don't want this noise to be too strong, so just maybe 40% slight noise. Okay. Next layer, we'll add another procedural noise. Okay, next layer, we'll add another procedural noise. So Lightwave has a lot of predetermined noises you can use as a base, as you can see here in this list. You have a brick noise. It imitates the boundaries between bricks. We have honeycombs. For some reason, if you want honeycombs, you have honeycombs here. It's very easy as a starting point to use those noises. Something I get really upset with other software because it doesn't have a good of a library of noises to start with to work textures. You have to um, you have to actually come up with your own textures and shaders. Lightwave solves a lot of those problems with noises. Yeah, I think this other noise is okay, 45% as well. I'm going to start adding the noises together to call those up. Now I'm going to add our creators. I'm going to deactivate those and go to crust. As you see, crust, it marks those spots on the object. It marks spots on the object. So I think those spots are already of a good size. Okay. So when we start to shrink the object by weight, which I'll do here as a demonstration, When you start to shrink the object by weight, you can fall off, select weight map. So now it will obey the weight map. Now I'm going to reduce it to a factor of zero point 0.2. That means whatever it's marked by weight will be reduced by 80% to 80% of the original radius. Apply, and you see only the marked orange spots have been altered on the geometry. So basically we have craters now. We have pretty simple blue craters. But craters are not only big holes on the object, they have rims because when the collision happens, of course you have a crater, you have the material that was compacted further into the object, material that was ejected, and then you have the material that is just spread out. You all craters have a rim. A rim of a crater is a region around the hole that is slightly elevated above the level of the ground, the original level of the ground. So we'll have a crater, and now I'll add a negative weight. I will copy the original crater, the crater texture, add another. Instead of additive texture, I'll add subtractive texture. So now subtractive textures are marked as blue. Okay, they're marked as blue. I'm going to put this under the additive texture, so basically it cancels out. It cancels out. But now here's the trick. Here's the trick to creating rims. You see this coverage setting right here. Coverage. Okay, let me deactivate this. The coverage controls how much of the surface. Okay, how much of the surface is covered by the spots. Okay, so if I put 0.1, it's 10% of the default area that I choose down here in the scale that's covered by spots. So right now it covers 10% of a cubic meter, 10% of a cubic meter. And then if I increase to 0.5, it covers 50% of a cubic meter. Okay, so I can control the size of those spots using this. So now the default size right now it's 0.4. I'm going to reduce it to 0.3 and leave this at 0.4. So now that's what will happen. When I turn on the subtractive texture, okay, the part that's overlays both textures will cancel out, and because the additive texture has a smaller radius than the subtractive texture, it will cancel out in the middle and race around the borders. That's exactly what we have. So if I reduce the radius now by 80%, what will happen is that the blue areas will rise up on the level. That's exactly what happened. So we have rims. Okay, we have isolated rims. We have isolated rims right now. We need to add a depth on the middle. So I will decrease the rim now, and now we have soft rims on the borders. As you can see here, there's a ring of blue around the orange parts. So now we press 80. We press the scale button, and now we have a rim around the craters. Now we can see that the craters are displacing material around them. They're not just holes, they displace actual material around them, which is pretty cool. Nice. Okay. And basically we will have to repeat this step to create large craters, average size craters, and then small craters. You have to repeat this step. Ctrl Z. Okay. Have the noise, have the craters. I'll add a large crater. Well, so current layer, copy, add. I'll paste this and change the scale to some 5 meters in scale. Okay, this is very nice. This is very nice. Add another. So this one is will be now subtractive. Will be 40%. Nice. So now we have a very large crater. We need small craters as well. I'll add some smaller ones. Okay, so this one will have half a meter in size. You see the small spots? There's what we're aiming for. Uh, want to make them smaller. Copy, add them, make the layer underneath subtractive, increase the radius by a little bit, and then decrease the opacity of the layer. And we can already see the craters. We can already see the craters. They are not geometric yet. They are just a texture over the object. Okay, they're just a texture right now. So now I will hold on. Let me actually increase this a little bit, 120, 130%. Okay, I want this crater to be large. Okay, so now I'll go back to texture and start syncing our craters by pressing the apply button. Oh shit, that's chaotic. That's very chaotic. That's not good at all. That's not good. There's too much noise. There's too much perhaps. Too much. Let's start very soft and try to see where it's going wrong. And that's not supposed to happen. Oh, yeah, yeah. I forgot to turn on the smoothing filter. Okay, go back, go back a little bit, go back. So this smoothing filter. Okay, so if I press tab on the light wave, I smooth out the object. So working with smooth, we don't get those ugly edges. Okay, we don't get those ugly triangle edges. Oh, here's the model smoothed out and with craters carved on it. Maybe a little bit more? Maybe that's too much. Perhaps that's too much. Something in between. Mm. Yeah, that's more comet-like. Looks like a comet of some sort. Okay, I think we're done with the craters for now. Just in case we actually need this, I will copy this, select all layers with shift click copy all layers, and then we can close this tab. For some reason, whenever you close the tab, it doesn't save any of the textures in it. That's why I copied it, because I don't want to lose the progress. I'll press S to save, and then F5 to open the surface editor. We change the surface to rock, which is a texture already made here. Just color blue, just so we know this object it's actually the one that's getting the texture. And then we can change to standard, which is the shading model or layers. I'll put all of this in bump. So remember the layers we copied, we can replace all layers. So here are the textures we copied. We're not use the bump right now, just deactivate all those layers now. And I'll color the model a different shade of gray. Color model a different shade of gray. Control the smoothing, maybe some 45-degree angles, 60-degree angles. 80-degree angles. Something between 80 and 75. Yeah, I'm gonna 75. Yeah, it's not as ugly as I thought it would be. Okay, that works. That works pretty nice. So for the geometry part is already done. Okay, the geometry part is already done. We'll center the object. Okay. So now we have to go to another software because I don't know why like new tech does this. There's a software for modeling and a software for filming, animating. So the modeling part's done. The modeling part's done. All the other half of the work, as already said in the start of the video, is actually texture work.